is going on, everybody? Welcome to the MLB Strategy Show presented by PrizePicks. I am Eric Lindquist. I am joined alongside one Adam Scherer. He is at Ship My Money DFS. Adam, how you doing, my dude?
Doing pretty good. Excited to move on to a new baseball slate after just getting absolutely massacred yesterday. It's exciting to be on the new one.
Okay, yesterday, I thought I was going to actually have a pretty decent night. I had a lot of the right Red Sox, I would say. I had a lot of things that you needed. It felt like it all came together until I find the most tilting thing in MLB DFS now, 11th innings, because we should not be in 11th innings. And as soon as Conforto hit another homer and Pete Alonso hits a homer, that entire Mets extra innings thing tilted me to no end.
Yeah, so I didn't even know that happened. I'd already gone to bed. But so for me, it was our final ownership update, like we lowered everything on the Padres, we lowered everything on Darvish, and then it's like, oh, it's not raining. So I ended up just like jamming in the Padres game. And then I late swapped off of it when they went into the rain delay, but the Red Sox had already started, the Nats had already started. So I ended up just like not having any of that. So like before I had even gotten up from my computer on the slate, I was like, yeah, okay, this one's over.
How much did you end up with?
Like 2%.
Oh, okay.
I was able to swap off all the Padres for the most part. It was just that
the slate was over.
Yeah, exactly.
The slate was over in 20 minutes.
Right.
I have never seen a flurry like that first 20 minutes of the slate yesterday. Maybe since Friday, if you want to say that, perhaps with the Padres game then. But man, is this something that we should be looking at a little bit more closely in terms of some of these massive offensive outputs? I mean, it wasn't over 90 degrees anywhere yesterday. You had some humidity, you had some decent hitting environments, but is it something as a repercussions of like mediocre pitchers are now terrible perhaps, or is there something that sticks out to you?
Yeah, like I don't think that there's a whole lot you can do from a DFS standpoint. I just think there's going to be more offense than we were getting earlier in the year, which I give Rob Manfred a lot of shit, but it seems like the foreign substance thing is actually having the intended result. I mean, you're getting just more offense, and I think what you said is likely to be the case. Like I think the good pitchers for the most part are still good. But I think a lot of mediocre guys are just not going to be that good anymore. And I think you're also going to get more poor performances even from pitchers that are good. You know, even if overall they remain quality pitchers, I just think you're going to get more games where it's like, oh yeah, he was terrible today. I just think offense is going to be up in general.
Well, I don't know if I can deal with many more slates like what we've had the last two on Fridays.
Last night was crazy too. One of my main teams had Alonso, McNeil, and Duran on it. So I get like back-to-back home runs basically. I'm like, oh, this is fun. But then within 5 minutes, I was like, oh, this team has no chance because the Red Sox have 8 runs.
Yeah, no Kiki, no every Washington National, it felt like. So there's that. It was just crazy, but hopefully all of you ended up on the better side of it, better than Adam and I did. But if you didn't, you know what? We could use some sympathy. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. Then you can know when all of this and all the other content at Awesemo is going live. Again, we were presented today by PrizePicks. We will get to them a little bit later in the show, but we've got 13 games to get to. You ready to get started?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, Philadelphia minus 122 at the New York Yankees. Let's just talk Aaron Nola right out of the gate. 14 days since he has last appeared. What are you expecting from Aaron Nola? Are there any pitch count concerns you might have for him, considering he hasn't pitched for 2 weeks? I mean, this was COVID. It wasn't something with his arm. He was a close contact to Alec Boehm, and therefore ends up being all right to come back in and pitch here. Are you going to have any concerns going to Nola whatsoever today?
Not unless I hear something. My assumption for now is that it's going to be normal. It's not that long, and he was just a close contact, right? Like,
right. Yeah, he was a close contact.
Yeah, so it's not like there's even like health concerns or anything like that. So unless we hear Nola's going to be limited, I'm going to just treat it like normal Aaron Nola.
All right. Well, yeah. So Aaron Nola on the season, 29.5% K percentage at sitting on the top end of the slate for sure. Continues to limit hard contact. Expected slugging is a little higher than I expected. Mine is, 405 on the season here. But you're getting a Yankees team. There are definitely some Ks that are available in this lineup, especially in this current iteration of the lineup. We'll see how it ends up panning out today, but they are just in shambles here at the moment as well. Only 4.3 implied runs, but it is Yankee Stadium. It's 80 degrees, 70% humidity, and 4.3 implied runs for the Yankees. There's some danger there, but it's still Aaron Nola at 9.5K. How do you prioritize him on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a dangerous spot, like you said. Like the Yankees do still have some quality hitters in their lineup, and the weather isn't ideal for pitching, but I think it's a pretty high upside spot too as well. We don't have the top pitchers tool updated yet, so I don't know where Nola is coming in on there. But I think as long as like the ownership on him doesn't get out of control, it's a spot that I want to go to because he's just a really good pitcher. He comes in with a 29.5% strikeout percentage on the year, strikes out righties and lefties at high clips. And this Yankees lineup, I mean, as long as you can kind of get through the top part of the order without making mistakes, he should be able to just carve up the bottom of this lineup. And then even the top, Stanton, obviously he's dangerous if you make a mistake, but he strikes out a ton. Rougned Odor strikes out a ton. Sanchez strikes out a lot. There's a lot of strikeouts to be had here for Nola. So I think the Yankees are still dangerous enough where if Nola ends up being projected to be one of the highest owned guys, maybe I shy away a little bit. But if he's not, I think that there's a lot of upside here for him.
And on the other side, Domingo Herman, I'm going to be targeting this dude today for sure. 4.8 implied runs for the Phillies, but I think that you're looking at a really good spot for specifically a guy like Bryce Harper in this lineup, even Didi Gregorius. Revenge spot, yay. I don't know. Everybody in this Phillies lineup, I think, is in play for a guy like Domingo Herman, giving up 433 expected slugging on the season, only a 21.7% K percentage, limits his walks. That's the one positive that he has going in his direction, but decent enough hitting weather here. Are you kind of feeling the same way about Herman? Any desire to roster him or looking at Phillies bats here more specifically?
Looking more at the Phillies bats, I think.
Yeah.
Herman's a guy that a couple of years ago looked like he was going to be pretty good, but he's dropped off quite a bit. Only about a 21.5% strikeout percentage this year. 216 expected ISO allowed to righties, 154 to lefties. I think that this is a spot where the Phillies can do some damage against him. Real Muto, I think, is going to be one of the better catcher options. Gene Segura is really cheap. Andrew McCutchen, 3K, most likely batting cleanup. And then, Hoskins has power. Harper, of course, is a strong option. I just think there's a lot of guys in this Phillies lineup that can do damage against him here.
Yeah, agreed. And as I said, or as you said, should I say, we don't have the top pitchers tool or the top stacks tool updated here as of yet, but I can tell you right now, I think the Phillies are probably going to go a little bit underrepresented. So I don't mind going that direction for sure. Let's just kind of move it along. Anything else you want to talk about from this game?
No, I think that's about it.
Yeah, we got 13 games. We can limit discussion on something. I think it's pretty obvious. Play Philly bats. Aaron Nola is going to be a fine option. But I can't really understand here. Miami -102, Washington 9 runs. Washington Nationals, my God, yesterday just an absolute eruption spot for them. Ended up kind of being the difference maker in the entire slate, but now they have a much more difficult matchup here, going up against Trevor Rogers, a 2.31 ERA on the season, 1.07 WHIP. I like this guy a lot. He's kind of a stud, but you're still seeing a pretty decent implied total here for Washington, 4.6 runs. Maybe that speaks to the weather being 90 degrees, wind blowing out slightly, 50% humidity. But what are you seeing out of Trevor Rogers today?
Yeah, kind of surprised by how high the implied run total is for the Nats because Rogers has been very, very good this year. Comes in with a 30% strikeout percentage, 0.44 home runs per 9, 3.35 xFIP. And despite what you would think by the Nats' offensive performance yesterday, this lineup is not that great. I mean, Turner, Soto, Bell, Harrison to some extent are fine, but it's a pretty weak lineup outside of that. Like Alcides Escobar has hit relatively well since coming back, but there's no real reason to think he's actually a good hitter. Jordy Mercer, Rene Rivera, Victor Robles, like none of these guys are good. So kind of surprised by the implied run total. The salary on Rogers is kind of scary as well. He's another one where, I mean, we don't have the ownership right now, but I think what I do with him will be heavily impacted by the ownership because I do think it's kind of a scary spot just because of the weather, of the implied run total for the Nats, and he is pretty expensive. But at the same time, he's one of the highest upside pitchers on the slate. So if he's going to be relatively low owned, then I think he's a good play. If he's getting a lot of ownership, then I'd rather get some Nats bats against him.
Agreed. You have Juan Soto, who, I mean, he's a fantastic hitter on both sides, but I mean, he's on the left side where it's a little bit of a downgrade for him. 856 OPS up against lefties, 974 OPS against righties on the season. So a little bit of platoon against the best hitter in this lineup. Slight bump also for Rogers. But yeah, it must just be the hitting environment that is kind of really driving this total up for this entire game, having it be right at 9, kind of a little juice towards the 9.5. But yeah, I'm very surprised by that. Espino, I don't think we're going to be rostering, though, correct?
Yeah, no. He's for one, like even in his decent outings, he's throwing like 70 to 75 pitches. And also he is very, 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 very bad. I realize this Miami lineup is watered down now as well. Like you don't have Jazz Chisholm, you don't have Garrett Cooper, you may or may not have Starling Marte, who didn't play yesterday, but you're not getting any sort of discount on Espino either. Like this guy, based on talent, is not a $6,800 pitcher. So I think you're paying for that matchup against Miami. There's and then you just have the issues of one, him not being good, two, him being unlikely to go deep into the game, even if he actually does pitch well. Against righties this year, he has a 20% strikeout percentage. He's also allowed a 232 expected ISO. Against lefties, 176 expected ISO, only a 13.5% strikeout percentage. If he were like 4K or 4,500 or something, I could see maybe doing it, but I don't really see a reason to pay close to 7K for him.
So what are we going to be doing with Miami bats becomes the question, because I don't like this lineup. I don't think anybody likes this lineup, but a 4.6 implied run total matching the other side of this. Miguel Rojas, Starling Marte possibly going to be in the lineup here. That would be fantastic. Jesus Aguilar, Adam Duvall. I mean, I don't really know outside of the top 4 or 5 guys. And I know it's a 13-game slate, so maybe you won't see crazy ownership there, but I think the guys I'd want to play for Miami are the same guys everybody wants to play for Miami. So it always makes it difficult. But what are you going to be doing with Marlins bats?
Yeah, like I think it looks pretty good for Marte if he's in the lineup, for Aguilar and for Duvall. Basically, I think you're just targeting power against Espino. The problem is there's like 3 hitters in Miami's lineup that have power. You can also use Jorge Alfaro as a cheap catcher option if you want. But I think it's that 2 through 4, assuming Marte is in the lineup, that looks like a pretty good mini stack.
And Washington on the other side, facing Rogers, not a guy you want to be picking on too much, but that implied total we've talked about multiple times now, it just sticks out. I mean, Trey Turner, Juan Soto, Josh Bell. Who was kind of your priority bats from the Washington side?
I don't think I really have any in terms of like the entire slate. I think Rogers is a very good pitcher. Where the Nats would become interesting is if Rogers is getting a lot of ownership. Certainly it's a team in larger field tournaments that, you can go, you're never making a bad play if you play Trey Turner, Soto, Bell. Like these guys have so much upside, really, regardless of the matchup. But yeah, I mean, Rogers is good enough where unless he's pulling a lot of ownership, I don't see myself really prioritizing Washington.
All right, as we're moving on to this next one, I just want to let you all know that the best way, if you are, trying to find a way to get in behind the paywall, one of the best ways to get a free month at Awesemo Plus Platinum is to review your favorite Awesemo shows on our podcast network. Almost all of our shows are available there at awesemo.com/podcast. So whether you want to go down there to get just to listen to one of the shows, take a look at everything there. Leave a 5-star review with your Twitter handle or your Awesemo username, and you'll be entered to win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We award one lucky winner every Friday, and your reviews are eligible for up to 1 year. This is as simple and easy of a step as you possibly can to get behind the paywall, which is valued right now. Awesemo Plus free month, that's around $90. So head over there and you'll be eligible to win. Awesemo.com/podcast. Good stuff. Boston plus 125. Toronto, 12 runs. We're looking at a massive Coors-esque total, higher than the Coors total. Part of that is Garrett Richards on one side and Thomas Hatch, who I know nothing about, on the other side. Talk to me about pitchers here.
They're not very good. Garrett Richards, has really struggled this year. Hatch is making his first appearance of the season. Pulling up his Fangraphs page now because I'm pretty sure he pitched last year. Like I recognize the name. He made 17 appearances last year, 1 start. This year he made 8 starts at AAA, but only threw a total of 29 in the 3rd inning. So not expecting this guy to go deep. 24% strikeout percentage at AAA. Needless to say, probably not someone I'm looking to here. Definitely not looking to Garrett Richards. Should get blown up by Toronto like he does by pretty much every other team.
He's so bad. What happened? I thought he was actually pretty good once upon a time, but maybe I was just...
Yeah, no, he was. Like, he used to be one of my favorite DFS guys when he was healthy. But then, he got older. He went through some injuries, and then apparently, according to him, was so reliant on foreign substances that he now has to learn new pitches.
Well, best of luck facing this Toronto offense. They're pretty good. I don't even play all the dudes. Is this a game where we just play all the dudes?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the one, I guess, good thing I could say about Garrett Richards is his expected ISO numbers really aren't that bad. 170 to lefties, 158 to righties. I fully expected it to be a lot higher, but he doesn't strike guys out. He's only struck out 18.8% of righties, 15.5% of lefties. And this is just such a powerful Toronto lineup like if you're going to allow them to put the ball in play, typically good things are not going to happen for you. So there are some weather concerns in this game, but I think right now it looks like it will most likely be okay. And assuming it is, Toronto looks like they'll probably be one of the highest owned stacks, but also in one of the best spots.
So Jaron Duran, a guy that was on one of your main teams you talked about before the show, very, very limited sample here so far. 71.4% hard hit percentage, not sustainable, not going to be the case going forward. But did you see something kind of in his AAA profile? I mean, Boston has a potent offense. They call him up and immediately plug him into the 2-hole. That tells me he's got to be a pretty decent stick to kind of get that kind of an upgrade here.
Yeah, I mean, he's a top 100 overall prospect, and it seems like he did something different at AAA this year. He had more home runs in 46 games at AAA than he had in his entire minor league career previously. He had hit a combined 8 home runs in 2018 and 2019. This year at AAA, he hit 15 home runs. So thinking he probably made some sort of adjustment in his swing. He steals a lot of bases. So at his price right now, even if you think that he's not going to hit home runs and he's just going to be like a slap hitter, he's going to steal enough bases to pay off a $2,300 salary. So I think he's pretty obviously underpriced, especially if he stays in that 2 spot in the lineup. They moved Verdugo down to 6 yesterday. So I think, he's just a very, very obvious value.
So yesterday, Toronto was a team I was high on. That didn't obviously come to fruition whatsoever, but I'm always high on them when they're going to come in at around flat ownership. We saw a 7.8% top stack percentage yesterday, 7.6% ownership share. We had a couple more games to the fray. We had Coors Field to the fray. Toronto, if they're coming in with flat ownership, how would you treat this team on this slate? We don't have the top stacks tool still updated here yet. I'm going to just send a note here and see if we can get that thing going. But I definitely feel as though this is a team that I'm going to want to get to in bunches on this slate if they're going under owned whatsoever.
Yeah, same here. Like I think there's a good chance that they come in getting, a lot of ownership, but I'm hoping they don't. The fact that there's a Coors Field game on this slate with Marco Gonzalez pitching maybe will help that. And the fact that it's a 13-game slate, so raw ownership doesn't matter quite as much to me as, just as it would on smaller slates. But yeah, I'm hoping to get to a lot of Toronto here. I just think it sets up as a really good spot. 6.2 implied run total, obviously one of the highest on the slate. They're not even that expensive. Like Guerrero's $6K, which is actually one of the cheaper prices we've seen on him recently. Semien and Bichette are $5K plus, but other than that, nobody's even $5,000 on this team. So they just look like a really, really good all-around spot.
Yeah, Semien and Bichette have been in like upper 5K range here for the last couple slates as well. So you're getting somewhat depreciated price tags. Obviously pitching, there's going to be some hit and miss spots. There are going to be some aces we're going to want to get up to, but I think there's enough value to make a 5-man here from Toronto work and not have it be extremely difficult. I will say there's a little bit of rain, it looks like, in this forecast. Just keep an eye on that. That's what we have the news guide here for. He will keep you updated on all the things. He was spot on yesterday in assessing everything with Atlanta and San Diego. That was very helpful to be on a live before lock, making good decisions. It didn't win me any money, but he definitely saved me money. Could have been much, much worse had I kind of stuck with some of that stuff. So thank you so much to him as well. He will always be keeping you apprised of what is going on. But let's move it along here. Next up on the board, we've got Mets plus 133, Cincinnati 10.5 runs here. Another game. I got so tilted. That entire extra innings affair between these two kind of blew it out of the water. Jesse Winker, 9th inning double to really put him over the edge. He was the highest owned batter on this entire slate. He was 4.2K. Now he's somewhat, for whatever reason, 3.9K against Robert Stock. And it makes me so upset. We don't have ownership up yet, but I can guarantee you one thing, Jesse Winker is going to be ridiculously stupid owned because people can't figure out frickin' pricing over at DraftKings.
Yeah, you can add Tyler Naquin at 2,300 to that.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I mean, it's the toughest spot, I think, in MLB DFS, where like you have someone that is just very clearly like $1,000+ cheaper than they should be, but it's also baseball, so maybe he'll line out 3 times. It's just it comes normally.
So let's break that down. So I wrote the MLB slate starter this morning, and I write it evenings before mornings, finish everything up, and I went on a little bit of a Jesse Winker deep dive, if you will, trying to figure out whether or not Jesse Winker was a good play or not yesterday. He was 23.4% on a 10-game slate it ended up being. How do you handle somebody who is so egregiously underpriced? And in the context of your lineup, for me, the only thing that I can really figure out is making sure that I'm not chalking in any other spot if I'm going to be playing somebody like that. But how do you handle somebody who is this egregiously priced on this slate?
Yeah, that's typically how I end up handling it. Like in a lot of cases, I'll end up around the field on someone like that, but they're in lineups that are contrarian otherwise. Like, they're in lineups where I stack the 2% owned team and I have like a contrarian pitcher. And it's just like at that point, give me the best plays around those guys. And, Winker was obviously one of the best plays yesterday. But, it's in your more popular teams. Like if you're playing a team that's getting like 8 to 10% ownership as your stack, you probably don't want to also be using Jesse Winker because it's just another spot where you're going to be overlapping with a ton of the field. So I would say it's never wrong in MLB to be underweight on a hitter that's like 25 to 30% owned. Like, especially in the outfield, there's so many options. Like it's a little bit different when you talk about like shortstop, second base. Sometimes there are plays that are just, there's nobody even in the same ballpark. But
Wander Franco kind of thing at 2K.
Yeah. But in the outfield, I mean, there's so many options, so many price points that it's really just a ton of ownership. So it really just comes down to what's the rest of my lineup look like? Because if I have a low owned lineup, I'm fine playing what I think is one of the best plays, but you really just don't want to be adding him to a lineup that already is getting ownership.
3.9K, Adam. It's so bad. It's probably one of the most.
The Reds. My guess is on the top stack tool, the Reds end up being the most over-owned team.
We just got an update. I was going to let you know. And they are. Adam, you must be pretty good at this because we just got the first update. Ownership share, Cincinnati coming in the highest owned team on this entire slate at 11.8% total ownership share, 4.9 negative leverage there. A top stack percentage of only 6.9%. But that just tells you how big of misprices they are. And people are going to go into optimizers and click all of the lovely little buttons, knowing that an optimizer is just going to give them out the best plays if they don't make adjustments and have it do what they want it to do for you. But I guess it makes sense in this spot. They're just egregiously underpriced. It's a good hitting environment too. It's over 85 degrees there in Cincinnati. Second best ballpark you can possibly be in, or number one, depending on how you break it up. Number one for home runs, for sure. A Great American Ballpark, Cincinnati here. But on the other side, the Mets still. So they're facing Wade Miley. I don't believe in Wade Miley as a pitcher, but for this season, 85 expected or like exit velocity is just a ridiculously good number. 6.6 degree launch angle keeps the ball down. That's how you survive in this ballpark. What are you going to be looking at doing with him and with some of these Mets bats? Yeah,
I mean, definitely not looking to roster an $8,300 Wade Miley. But like you said, he does do a good job of keeping the ball on the ground. 139 expected ISO to righties, 0.063 to lefties this year. I'm still interested in the Mets because, again, the ballpark's good, the weather looks good, and I just still don't believe Wade Miley's that good. So I think, looking at guys like Pete Alonso, looking to J.D. Davis, like the right-handed power in this lineup, makes sense. But the problem you're going to run into from a full stack standpoint is that you have a very left-handed heavy lineup in terms of the better hitters on the Mets. And while I do think lefty gets kind of overblown in DFS, like that people avoid it too much, it still does make the Mets look a little bit worse when you're going up against the pitcher in Miley that has been he's just been downright good against lefties this year. So it does make me, not too excited to be running a stack of like Nimmo, McNeil, Smith, Conforto or something. But individually, I think Alonso and Davis look like good plays.
We saw that Wade Miley, 19.2% K percentage, 8,300. What a time to be alive. Not the greatest numbers to be looking at there. On the other side, though, Cincinnati, yeah, you definitely called that for sure going to be the highest owned team on this slate. It looks like as of right now, I can't see that changing a ton with some of these egregious prices, but are you still going to be looking at stacking them up in this spot?
Probably not.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, it does depend on the tournament size. If you're playing higher stakes, smaller fields, or if you're just playing, lower stakes, small fields, then ownership doesn't matter quite as much. And it doesn't matter quite as much on a 13-game slate anyway, because they're projected to be over-owned, but they're still only getting like 12% ownership. But, the issue is just there are so many good hitting spots on this slate that I think I'll probably just end up going elsewhere. Normally when a team is like this and they're really, really good values, but they're also projected to be over-owned, I normally end up getting to the players individually, but it's more just mixing them in on teams where I'm already contrarian than lumping them all together, because it just gets so difficult to differentiate your lineup when you're playing 5 guys that are all, 15+% owned. It becomes really, really difficult. It's a lot easier to just mix Jesse Winker in on a low-owned team than to run full stacks, I think.
I agree with that. And that's something you've really pointed out to me as well, is finding like 2 or 3 pieces. You don't have to stack up the entire team. A way to get different is to play 2 of them, to play Winker, maybe play a lower owned piece of Cincinnati and have that kind of be your exposure to this game, not having to full stack and try to beat every other Cincinnati stack, because there are going to be plenty of them. Let's go along to Baltimore plus 185 at Tampa Bay. Hopefully you guys were listening to Live Before Lock. Greg and I, our favorite bet on the show was Baltimore, the money line. I ended up getting them at plus 240. That ended up working out nicely up against one Ryan Yarborough. Baltimore still 3.2 implied runs. I'm not saying that this is a good baseball team by any means, but John Means on the mound, decent enough pitcher here. I can't believe am I seeing this right? 9.3K for John Means. Is this real life?
Yes.
Oh my God.
He is $200 less expensive than Aaron Nola.
I love prices today.
And he has not pitched in a month and a half, to be clear.
I don't understand what's going on. So we're not going to be rostering John Means. How about on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, Means threw like 3 innings in his last rehab start. Just don't go to John Means. And it has nothing to do with John Means' talent. It's just he probably isn't even going deep enough to give you $9,300. On the other side, I do have some interest in McClanahan. Except for he's getting 31% ownership right now. If that comes down a little bit, then I'll have more interest. McClanahan threw 91 pitches his last time out. We had seen him between 85 and 90 in several starts previously. So you're getting him, deep enough into games that he has a little bit of a ceiling there. He struck out 28% of hitters this year, has pretty nasty stuff. I don't love the salary at 8,600. Like, I wish he was a little bit less expensive, but really for him, a lot's just going to come down to ownership, because if he does continue to be projected for 30+% ownership, there's some guys that I will pivot to at lower ownership just because I think the range of outcomes is similar. But if that does come down, then I think that he ends up looking like a good option. I'll also mention we have John Means projected for 21.5% ownership. There's no way that's right. That's going to change, I would assume.
I would hope so. That's kind of what I'm looking at here as well. That entire pitching spot. Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest on either side at the current ownership that we would have for sure. But yeah, McClanahan getting 30.9% owned, only a top 2 pitcher percentage of 12.5. Yeah, I'm going to see that changing for sure. But Baltimore bats. So the top half of this lineup can be potent enough at times. Back half, just kind of almost completely irrelevant. Who's the guy that you always play? It feels like every single slate that you end up playing who's just completely garbage, the shortstop. Not to call you out. Ramon Urias, there he is. What was that?
Fun fact. What do you think his Steamer WRC plus projection is?
I don't want 125 if we're going to be stupid.
No, it's 100.
Oh, it's 100 on the number.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was just surprised because I when I did the show with Josh yesterday, I made the same joke about me always getting way too much Ramon Urias. And then I pulled up his Fangraphs page to make fun of myself. And I was like, wait, this guy actually projects as like an average hitter.
Yeah, well, he's 2.4K. So, I mean, all in, push the chips to the center and back it up. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Orioles go, I like Hayes at 2,500. I like Mountcastle at 3,400. Santander at 2K is fine. But again, it's just there's so many good hitting spots on this slate. There's so many underpriced bats. The only real way I see to be getting to Baltimore stacks is if McClanahan does pull tons of ownership. It'll make some sense, but not a good hitter's park, not a bad pitcher at all, and not a slate where you're lacking for value. So I think it'll be pretty tough to get to the Orioles.
Yeah, I think yesterday was a little bit different. I had Greg. I know we were talking about getting to some Baltimore Orioles. I ended up with very, very little still, but I liked a number of the guys on the top end. Yesterday's slate was just out of hand, though. I don't even know how to break down other parts of it. But the Tampa Bay Rays on the other side, 4.5 implied runs. Vidal, Brujan on the one side. Yandy Diaz, if he ends up back in the lineup there, could be in the 2-hole. Wander Franco continuing there as well. Going up against John Means, if he's not going to be in there for very long, this is a Coors Field-esque Baltimore bullpen. Is that going to be something that we're going to be very interested in on this slate?
I still have trouble getting there because the park is just terrible for hitting. I assume Means is going to be able to go like 5 innings or something like that. So, assuming Means is pitching relatively well, that's not really a matchup that you want to be in. And then, yeah, the Orioles bullpen is bad, but it's still difficult to have success against bullpens. There's so many like good spots to go to on this slate. I do think that if Brujan's leading off at 2,600, that's not a bad spot to get to. But overall, not really interested in the bats in this game just because there are so many good hitting environments today.
So my allergies have been terrible. And now somebody's out back, like weed whacking Going nut. Oh, this is just the worst morning ever. Do you have allergies at all?
Oh yeah, terrible.
It's maybe I would trade in so many things. I have good eyesight. These glasses are just for like screens and stuff, but like, do you have any kind of allergy? Like, do you have anything that you would trade in for allergies? I feel like you could reduce my hearing. You could make my vision terrible. Give me anything but allergies.
I don't know. I'm like so used to it now. Like I don't even like take medicine every day. Like I should absolutely, but like I don't even do that. I just like deal with it. I don't know. It's just like second nature. Like it's really annoying, but yeah, but I did like when I was a kid, I did the whole allergy shots thing for years, and yeah, it's brutal. I don't have food allergies though, so I'm thankful for that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Not to be, I want to trade this in for that, but yeah, I'm a golfer who's allergic to grass. Not ideal. I'm going to say that that's not an ideal thing.
Yeah.
What is an ideal thing is playing over at PrizePicks. As long as you are using the promo code Awesemo to take advantage of that $100 first deposit match bonus. They want to help you get started playing over there where you don't have to deal with sharks, optimizers, or mass entries. All you have to do is pick 2, 3, 4, or 5 players on the board for their over or under projected scores. And if you get 5-player lineup, you can net up to 10x on your entry fee. PrizePicks offers everything. So whether you want to do the NBA Finals combined with MLB combined with esports, they have so many esports contests. They have all of these things that you can mix and match together to make the best portfolio you can and the best lineup possible. So download the app in the App Store or on Google Play today and make your first deposit using promo code Awesemo, as I said before. Also, to be in addition to that, use the MLB player props tool to help you in your process. You'll be able to see right directly on the screen the best spots to be going to. Right now, I have targeted Mike Minor over 5.5 as a very good spot to be going to. I think that that's changed here a little bit, where it's the over on 5.5. It's right around a 4% expected ROI, but they took the Herman and the Marquez ones. The Marquez is at 6. I think that that's fine, but you're going to probably be splitting that more than you're not. The over on 5.5, which you can get around the industry, is at a 19% expected ROI. Definitely use the prop tool to help you make informed decisions over at PrizePicks today. I think also, if you wanted to try to find some Coors Fields bats to use the fantasy scores, I think that that's an all right spot to be going to, specifically on the Colorado side. We'll be getting to that game here a little bit later, but thank you so much to PrizePicks. Absolutely love playing over there. The easiest interface that you can possibly be using, whether you're on a laptop, whether you're using an iPad, whether you're using your phone, super, super easy. So check it out. Let's go to the next game on the board. We have Texas plus 110 at Detroit, 8.5 runs. Detroit just went completely nuts yesterday. That was not ideal against Kyle Gibson, who is my second highest owned pitcher, next to one Shohei Ohtani. Bad stuff all around. But now we're looking at Dane Dunning versus Tariq Skubal. And Skubal, from our first look at this, at the top 2 pitchers tool, 15.5% of being a top 2 pitcher. That's 4th best on this slate. He's only 7,700. How are you handling pitching in this game, Adam?
I like both sides of this game. I mean, so both sides scare me because I don't really trust either pitcher, but I think that the upside's there for both guys. The ownership projections on them right now aren't out of hand. We have Skubal getting about 22% on DraftKings, Dunning getting about 14%. Both of these offenses have strikeout potential. Like, yeah, they both have guys that can do damage as well. Detroit's been a very frustrating team to pick on recently, but to me, you don't want to get caught up in the recency bias there. Like, all of these teams have major league hitters. Even the bad teams are going to have games where they do well. They're going to have stretches where they do well. You're still looking to pick on the weakest guys and ignore the fact that they scored 13 runs yesterday against Kyle Gibson. So, like, I still like the salaries on both of these guys. Skubal comes in, like you said, one of the highest top pitcher percentages on the slate. 28% strikeout percentage this year. 10% walk percentage isn't great. 1.95 home runs per 9, also not great. So, there is some risk there, but the strikeouts that Texas gives you, the overall lack of power in their lineup, like Jonah Heim, Joey Gallo, Adolis Garcia, those will be scary at bats if you have Skubal. But for the most part, I think it sets up pretty well. And pitching on the slate isn't that good. His salary is reasonable. And then on the other side, Dane Dunning is a pitcher that you and I have talked about quite a bit. We think has just been underpriced pretty much all season long for his talent level. He has a 24.9% strikeout percentage, 3.57 xFIP, 0.8 home runs per 9 allowed. He's just a pretty solid pitcher, and he's $6,700. Like, he's $100 less expensive than Paulo Espino, who strikes out like 15% of guys and there's 75 pitches a game. This is just a mispricing on Dane Dunning.
Well, the thing about Dane Dunning too is that he's never overowned. Like, the guy never gets 15-20% ownership, pretty much never. I'm very highly down. What's his number today? 3.9%. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think 6,700, if you want to be getting to some of the bigger boppers, if you want to get to Toronto, if you want to get to Colorado, that this might be kind of a route to make that work. Dane Dunning, yeah, he can definitely give up hard contact, 43.8%, but Tariq Skubal, 45.8%. So I'm willing to take shots on both of them, but I'm also willing to go and take some interest in the Texas Rangers and Detroit Tigers bats. The problem, Joey Gallo getting up, but Adolis Garcia, I love that you brought him up right off the bat. I don't love going to Texas up against lefties just because Nate Lau and Joey Gallo, two of their hardest hitters in that lineup, are kind of neutralized a little bit by the lefty matchup. But do you have any issue with stacking up the Rangers today?
I just kind of had to laugh because you said Nate Lau, and when he got called up with Brandon Lau from Tampa, Brandon Lau's quote was that, like, I'm going to be so good that people are going to, like, because everyone reads it as Low. He was like, I'm going to be so good that they're going to call you Nate Lau instead. Because it is Nate Lowe. It's Nate Lowe.
It is Nate Lowe.
Yeah,
Shit.
It's Nate Lowe and Brandon Lau.
Oh my God, I can't
Brandon
stop.
Lau
I can't stop.
He was going to become Nate Lau. But no. I'm with you. I mean, I think the bats are fine. Gallo, Garcia, Heim are I think the most appealing. One other note is I'm going to look for more articles on it. I can't find any right now, but going into the All-Star break, Dane Dunning had been limited. He threw 68 pitches and then 64 pitches in his last two starts. So that's a situation where it does make me a lot more hesitant, but hopefully we get some sort of information that they'll ramp him back up. But definitely something to pay attention to there. As far as the Tigers bats, it's more of like a full stack spot, I think, if you're going to go there. Akil Baddoo would be my favorite hitter, followed by Scope. But overall, there's just not really guys on that team that I want to roster individually. It's more like get them all together in case the other pitcher is just terrible.
Eric Haas, you can go to Eric Haas.
Yeah.
Catcher with some major with some major pop. Don't be bypassing him as well if you're going to stack them up. I think that those are kind of the main ones, but definitely a more intriguing 2 or 3 man than it is going to a full 5 man, unless Dane Dunning is just bad today, in which case go ahead. But let's go to the Padres, minus 154 going into Atlanta, 9 runs after the phantom rain game that was yesterday. Sorry about that and everything. It was just ridiculous, but I'm glad I got him out of my pool. Glad it didn't completely burn me. But yeah, everything else on the slate burned me. So there's that. Yu Darvish now, we're looking at getting back into our lives. Received the price bump for whatever reason, just coming from yesterday where I believe he was 9,200, didn't pitch. So now he's up to 9,800 over on DraftKings. I still think he's going to get a bunch of ownership at that number. We still got to be paying attention to this weather. How are you handling Yu Darvish this time around?
Yeah, assuming that they decide to play today, I'm definitely interested in Darvish. I mean, it's just tough. There's not a whole lot of pitching to like on this slate, and what there is, they're all in that same price range. So I think that, almost a 30% strikeout percentage for Darvish, a little bit of a weakened Atlanta lineup without Ronald Acuna. As long as the ownership is relatively in check, right now we have them at about 27%. If it stays in that ballpark around 30%, I think I'll be getting to a good amount of Darvish here. Just, it's a decent spot. Atlanta does have strikeouts in their lineup. It's still a potent enough lineup where if Darvish isn't on top of his game, they'll do damage. But I think good Darvish should be able to handle this lineup, and he's not overly expensive, I don't think.
And on the other side, Kyle Muller, also big price bump up to 8.3K from yesterday over on TK. Decent enough strikeout stuff that exists there. I just always get very, very worried about targeting anybody on the San Diego side. But I mean, Kyle Muller, 8.3K, going to be tougher to get there today as opposed to yesterday, no?
Yeah, I agree. Yesterday at 7,600, I was kind of interested in rolling the dice. I still wasn't going to get there anyway, but the argument for Muller basically is that he had a 31% strikeout percentage at AAA. He's at 33% through his first few major league starts. The Padres are obviously a very, very dangerous offense, but Muller's getting 1% ownership and has tons of strikeout upside. That would be the case for him. I just don't really think that it ends up being necessary. I think on a 13-game slate, you're going to be able to find plenty of other spots that don't involve kind of overpaying for a pitcher against the Padres. But, in large field tournaments, if that's a route you want to take, it's viable, I guess. I just think I'll be able to find better ones.
So batters on the one side, I guess the one guy you brought up against Darvish yesterday, from what I recall, Jock Peterson, I think that makes a lot of sense. Not a guy who hits for much average, but man, he's got some pop, and having that addition, it's not Acuna, but it's certainly viable here on the top end. His price is simply doable at 3.1K. It just sticks out even against Darvish here, but anybody else from either side that really sticks out to you?
No, I mean, if Darvish's ownership climbs, like for example, when later we update ownership again and John Means 21% disappears, if a lot of that goes to you, Darvish, and he ends up, 40, 45%, I could see getting to some Atlanta stacks in larger field tournaments just because 1 through 5, it is still a pretty dangerous offense. It's obviously not as good as when Acuna is in, but it's still not bad. So I could see doing that if Darvish's ownership climbs. But if it stays where it is, I don't really see a reason to go there. I would be interested in going to the Padres. Right now, we have them projected. We have them with the 5th highest top stack percentage, going to be a little bit under-owned according to ownership projections right now. Muller's strikeout stuff's been really good, but at the same time, you're talking about a pitcher who's making, I believe, his 5th major league start. So, Tatis is going to look good. Tommy Pham's pretty inexpensive. Machado's price dropped $600. I think, it's just a high upside spot for the Padres. It pretty much always is.
Yep, they are pretty darn good. Cleveland plus 161 at Houston, 9 total runs here in this one. I don't even, where did my sheet go? So I X'd out a tab. I think I covered it pretty well, but I hate when I just like X out all my tabs when we're on a show. It just becomes like, oh, I have to bring up 44 different iterations of FanGraphs again. But there we are. Got it up here now. Tristan McKenzie on the one side. He is so bad at pitching, but he has a 32.1% K percentage here on the one side, 51.9% hard hit percentage. That is very, very bad. Luis Garcia, though. So I didn't really feel that high on this dude coming into the season. And then as the season progressed, I was like, oh, well, the Ks aren't really there. The Ks are there now. 28% K percentage here now. 39% hard hit percentage limits that. 368 expected slugging. Just a really good pitcher. He's really expensive, but he is jumping up, I guess, 3rd right now. 17.3% top 2 pitcher percentage, sitting behind Nola and Darvish. Ownership's not really there again because it's 10.4K to get up to him. How are you going to handle him on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, crazy expensive price tag for him, but also a pretty good spot going up against Cleveland. One of the lower implied run totals at 3.9. Not getting a ton of ownership to Garcia. It's kind of like if you have a cheaper stack, I can see, and you're not really giving anything up to get to Garcia. I can see landing on some just because he does have about a 28% strikeout percentage this year. But I'm not going to be. I don't think I'll be prioritizing paying extra money for him as opposed to going to Darvish, Nola, guys in that price range that give you the same sort of upside and are just a little bit less expensive.
Yep. And then Tristan McKenzie on the other side. I mean, that is a ridiculous K percentage to be looking at, but he's, again, not good. I don't know. 8K is the dumbest thing I've ever seen for a guy with a 5.47 ERA, 1.4 whip. The K stuff can be there. I mean, we just saw 32.6 that he put up against Kansas City. That's a little bit more right heavy. This Houston team has been K'ing more of late, but if you just group it by righties, still only strike out at a 20% clip against right-handed pitching on the season. That is the best in the major leagues. A 116 WRC plus. I mean, is this a boom bust spot for Tristan McKenzie, or should we just be avoiding him at all costs anyway?
I'm staying away. Like, I don't like the matchup against Houston. He walks a lot of guys, which is obviously an issue. The strikeout stuff is there, but if he were cheaper, like if you give me like a $6,500 price tag on DraftKings for McKenzie, I could see maybe rolling the dice. But it's just so difficult at 8K for a guy that walks nearly 20% of hitters in a tough spot against Houston to get deep enough into a game that he's going to give you a score that you want. So
let's go to the Houston side. I mean, Cleveland, I feel like I have the same analysis every time, and I think it's probably close to the same for you with Franmil Reyes, Jose Ramirez. They are viable in any spot against any pitcher. I don't want to be picking on Luis Garcia, but there's some viability in a massive tournament to possibly go to that 1-2 combo. Anything else from Cleveland stick out to you first?
No, I mean, the Ramirez Reyes combo obviously is good. Not a spot that I'm really looking to target. Like, Garcia is not projected to get enough ownership to really matter. And the Indians outside of those guys, Bobby Bradley has some power as well. But outside of that, like, mini stack in the middle, I don't really see anything.
Well, I would also gloat about my Jordan Alvarez home run call yesterday, but there's nothing really to gloat about when there were 500 home runs hit during the course of the slate, especially from the outfield position. You had, it was just a ridiculous slate. But Alvarez, yeah, definitely hit a homer for me. That was nice. Good times. But yeah, Kyle Tucker, 563 expected slugging, actually leading the team here. Going to these lefties, Tucker, Alvarez, Brantley, 1, 2, 3, feels like a very easy thing to do as well. If you want to combine some Correa, Altuve into the middle of it, no problem. If McCormick's in the lineup like he was yesterday, no issue getting there as well. But anybody else from Houston really stick out to you?
I mean, Brantley, I think, is a really good value at 3,200. He doesn't have the most power, but he should be hitting second in this lineup. He's still a good hitter overall. Alvarez, if he's in the lineup, He dealt with some issue during yesterday's game. I believe he stayed in. But if he's in the lineup, he obviously looks good. Kyle Tucker's salary is really cheap. I will say I kind of, and again, this is something that's a lot harder to manage if you're playing 150 lineups. But if you're someone hand building lineups, Houston, I think, is a team where I just prefer like full stacking them or not having them in this spot because the walk rate for Tristan McKenzie just kind of makes it so like it benefits Houston because he's putting a lot of guys on base. They're getting more at bats. So it benefits the full stack. But when you're just trying to grab an individual hitter, you're looking for home runs. And when a guy's walking 20% of hitters, it just really increases the chances that your guy doesn't even get anything to hit. So, again, in 150 lineups, it's pretty hard, pretty difficult to manage. You're going to just end up with some one-offs from Houston. But if I'm hand building lineups and kind of stuck between like Kyle Tucker and someone else, I would go towards the non-Houston guys in general.
Like it. And again, 19% walk percentage, 18.9% walk rate for Tristan McKenzie. That kind of like sets up well for the full stack on the one side for Houston, because you're going to get a lot of guys that are going to be sharing some points. Definitely some positive correlation to be had there. We're making really good time. We got just less than half an hour to go here. We've got 5 games still on the horizon here. Let's talk about fantasy football for one quick second. Obviously, everybody saw the Cam Akers news. It seemed like people were talking about it at the chat at the very beginning. That's a huge bummer. Darrell Henderson, the new greatest running back that you can possibly have on your best ball teams. But I digress. Fantasy football is quickly approaching. And if you trust us with DFS, then there's no reason not to trust us with your season log and best ball fantasy football teams. And now there is a place that you can go to. Awesemo Fantasy Football on YouTube and on the Twitter sphere. Go to @AwesemoFantasy on Twitter or the Awesemo Fantasy Football Facebook page. You got Matt Gajewski, you've got Laffy, you've got everybody else that you know and love here at Awesemo that's going to be putting up short form content. We're talking constantly about all these NFL guys. You can go through all those videos. So much good stuff talking about who you need to be prioritizing in your drafts. Some analysis on, I just watched the one on Alvin Kamara this morning, somebody that I'm having a difficult grasp of what I want to do with him this entire season. And if you're like me and you're trying to get your football mind going a little bit, this is the place to stop by. This is the place to go. Check it out. Matt Gajewski's just so sharp. You'll enjoy all those videos. Top running back handcuffs, late round running backs. Be checking out all of that stuff constantly as we start putting out content for it, because it will be here. NFL will be here before you know it. Let's go to Minnesota, plus 124 at the Chicago White Sox, 9.5 runs here in this spot. You've got, 5.2 implied runs for the Sox, 4.4 for Minnesota. Bailey Ober, Dallas Keuchel, 7.3K for Dallas Keuchel. Seems like a lower number there, but never somebody that I roster that much. Can be a ground ball pitcher, but not very great for DFS purposes. Bailey Ober on the other side, that's a huge tag to be seeing for him already. I really don't know how to analyze any salaries that I'm looking at this morning. Go ahead and just talk about these guys.
Yeah, no idea. I'm not interested in going to Keuchel here. It just doesn't strike out enough guys. Minnesota's a potent enough offense that it's not likely they really help Keuchel out. On the other side, the White Sox offense is good. Bailey Ober has some pretty good stuff, but there's just no way I'm paying $8,800 for him. So not on the pitching in this game.
8,800. I mean, where does that even put him? 6.6. Right now we're projecting him with 0.5 ownership. I think that sounds about right. At the moment, 6.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Bailey Ober's fine. He's just not that kind of a pitcher. That's a ridiculous number to be looking at.
However, you have to go more than 5 innings in a start.
That's just so dumb. What is going on with some of the pricing? Maybe this is like them doing us a favor, where maybe people are just clicking on names that if they have 8,800 remaining in their lineup and they just click on that name in large field tournaments coming over from NBA stuff, or I don't know what's going on. There's no way to spin that positively, but looking at this Minnesota lineup up against Dallas Keuchel, I mean, Dallas Keuchel, 463 expected slugging, 297 expecting batting average. 297 expecting batting average is a pretty large number for him. He does limit some hard contact, but you've got some guys up and down this Minnesota lineup. I mean, Josh Donaldson, 18.2% barrel rate on the season. Sano sucks. I don't even want to talk about him. Kirilloff, Kepler. I mean, we've got some pop in this lineup here. I don't mind getting to Minnesota in this spot. I just don't know if they can blow him up in the way that you would need to with through the long ball. It would have to be kind of a death by a million cuts, which isn't necessarily Minnesota's MO. It certainly isn't Nelson Cruz's MO. But anything that you're planning to do with Minnesota here?
Yeah, I mean, right now they're only getting like 1% ownership. and I do think they're a pretty high upside spot. Keuchel this year has allowed a 191 expected ISO to righties, only a 12% strikeout percentage. I think it's a pretty dangerous spot for him when you talk about right-handed power like Josh Donaldson, Nelson Cruz, Mitch Garver, Larnach and Kirilloff, both lefties, so not quite as appealing. But I do think that Minnesota's a team you don't need to be like jamming them into 20% of your lineups or anything, but they're projected to be under-owned. I think they have a very high ceiling, and I do individually like Donaldson and Cruz and Garver quite a bit.
Is Garver back in?
He's in the projected lineup. I don't know.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, yeah, no, he just showed back up yesterday. They weren't on the main slate yesterday. What a great fan that I am that I didn't even see that Garver was back. That's just what DFS does to you, I think, is that you end up so enamored and obsessed with figuring out what's going on for the teams that aren't they're your own team. It doesn't matter if they're not on the main slate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's that. Looking at the rest of this lineup, we've covered Minnesota, Chicago White Sox going up against Bailey Ober. Bailey Ober's fine. 26.1% K percentage. That's guess what you're paying $8,800 for. If you want to, don't pay $8,800 for Bailey Ober. But 431 expected slugging, 43% hard hit percentage, 18.9 degree average launch angle through 93 batted balls in play here. I think we can get to some White Sox here, and that implied total is pretty darn large to be looking at 5.2 on this slate. What's your White Sox interest?
I like the White Sox. I was really high on them the last time they faced Bailey Ober, and he had a great start and just made me look really, really bad. But I still like the way they match up here against him. Like, he has struggled with lefties in particular this year. He has struck out almost 35% of right-handed hitters, 18.5% of left-handed hitters, 247 expected ISO allowed to left-handed hitters. Someone that has struggled with left-handed power. I think Moncada looks great. Ryan Goodwin looks great. You can look towards the bottom of the order, Gavin Sheets, Zach Collins, if they're in there. And then from the right side, obviously you feel better about the lefties, but Tim Anderson, Jose Abreu, these guys are good enough that I'll still obviously take my chances with them. Andrew Vaughn is cheap and has a lot of power. It's just a really high upside offense. Individually, I love Moncada. I really like Ryan Goodwin, but as a stack, I like them too, especially because they're only getting about 2% ownership right now.
Yeah, 75 degrees, 75% humidity, wind blowing out to right. That kind of bolsters lefty power a little bit more. Not that Brian Goodwin is lefty power, but he's definitely a lefty who can hit the ball decent enough here. Who would work really well in that lineup today is Adam Eaton, but I digress. Gavin Sheets, he's certainly going to be just fine here. I thought that was kind of surprising that they just released Eaton considering he was injured and then gets picked up immediately by the Angels. I don't know. Maybe that's just my Adam Eaton's underrated take for the day.
I'm guessing they just wanted to play their young guys.
Okay, that makes sense. But just playing your young guys is one thing if you weren't 15 games up in the division.
Yeah, but I don't think there's a big gap between Eaton and whoever else. Plus, Luis Robert, I think, is coming back soon.
Okay, yeah, because once he gets back, and you're not going to get, Luis Robert, you're going to be playing at the top of that lineup every single day. He's just a freak. So I guess that does make some sense. Yeah, Gavin Sheets, I think, is a decent enough player. He came out of the gate hot here for the White Sox, but definitely like getting to him on the back half of that lineup. Definitely will be an inclusion in wraparound stacks for me, for sure. Chicago, minus 115 going up against St. Louis. So yeah, the Chicago Cubbies now going into St. Louis, 8.5 runs here in this spot for them. Yesterday was kind of an interesting game between them. We were very high. I think we both kind of were pretty high on trying to get to some mills. That didn't work out fantastic. It didn't hurt you. He ended up with 14, which on yesterday's slate was better than Ryan Yarbrough, better than just about everybody. It all came down to bats, but Trevor Williams, we're not going to be looking to roster. Johan Oviedo, don't think we're going to be looking to roster as well. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not. I'm not paying $9,200 for Trevor Williams.
What is going on?
I don't know. His strikeout stuff's actually been good this year. He's 25%, but still don't feel the need to save $300 off of Aaron Nola by going to Trevor Williams.
He hasn't pitched over 80 pitches in his last 4 starts either.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just remove him from your pool, everybody. There's 15 dudes I'm going to need to just remove from my pool. Normally, I'll leave them in and just be like, oh, if I get to a couple shares of it or whatever. It is wrong to have a share of Trevor Williams in your lineups today. Is that a fair assessment?
I mean, yeah, if you get 1 or 2, it's whatever. He can score 25 fantasy points. They all can. But yeah, it's to your point, you want to take them out. I think that's perfectly fine because you would probably rather just have that extra share of Nola or whoever.
Oh my God. Just what in the world, DraftKings? Maybe it's a FanDuel day for me. How about a FanDuel day? Can I talk you into that, Adam?
No.
No, I cannot.
I was gonna try and start naming things that I would rather do, and I realized it was gonna be a really offensive segment.
Go ahead. No, go. Give me an example of something.
No, we're good.
We'll let the chat let us know something that Adam would rather do today than go to FanDuel and play over there. I'll give FanDuel some love. Absolutely love it. Going to these bats, let's look at the top stack percentage. That is the spot you need to be looking at constantly on a slate, especially this size. If you can just be on the better side of positive leverage every single time out, you're going to win in the long run. Yeah, you're probably going to lose more days than not because it's tournaments, it's MLB DFS, but I think that just going to these top stacks, 3.4% right now for a top stack percentage for the Cubs doesn't sound like a ton, but on a 13-game slate, that's fine. And they're only coming in with about 2% ownership. I don't mind getting to some of this power going up against Johan Oviedo, who does a good job of limiting some hard contact, but walks 12.3% of dudes, doesn't miss bats, only a 16.4% K percentage. And you've got Patrick Wisdom with some serious pop in his bat. Rizzo's fine. Baez is fine. Contreras is one of the best hitting catchers you'll find. What do you think about the Cubbies today?
Yeah, I agree. The ownership looks pretty good on them. And the thing is, too, even though there's a lot of really, really good offenses on this slate, or really, really good offensive spots, I should say, there's still not any one team. Like the Red Sox right now have the highest top stack percentage at 8.8%. The Cubs are at 3.7. So you're talking about the Red Sox basically being a little bit more than twice, having a little bit higher than 2x the chances of being the top stack as the Cubs, but they're drawing 5 times the ownership. And so it's still, at least right now, it looks like a slate that's pretty spread out. The opportunity cost to going to any one offense isn't really that high. You don't have any of these teams at 20, 25%, like we were seeing when the Rockies were in core. The Dodgers were in cores, or the Blue Jays were facing the Orioles not long ago. So I think the opportunity cost isn't that high. It makes me like teams like the Cubs. Like you said, Oviedo is not missing bats. He's allowed a 196 expected ISO to righties, 183 to lefties. And the Cubs certainly have power, especially at the top of this order. It's not, the deepest lineup, but the bottom of the order with guys like Nico Hoerner and Ian Happ is pretty inexpensive as well. So I do like the Cubs here as long as the ownership doesn't come up.
And then Goldschmidt, O'Neill, Matt Carpenter was in the 3-hole yesterday, and I just kind of laughed. But 451 expected slugging on the season was better than I expected. 45.7% hard hit, 45.7% hard hit percentage, 31.4% K percentage, really, really bad. But Matt Carpenter, a little bit better than what I was anticipating going into looking at that. But for the most part, St. Louis on the other side also coming in a little bit under-owned, but not as interested. It's the same implied total, so I guess I shouldn't be looking at it that way. But as you said, Trevor Williams has been a little bit better pitcher, been getting some strikeouts here. How are you handling St. Louis here? Because I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the Cubs just because I think Williams is better than Oviedo. I do think Dylan Carlson leading off at 3,400 is in a pretty good spot. Tyler O'Neill, we know, gives you power at 3,900. So far this year, Williams has just been drastically better against right-handed hitters. The slider's been good. He's throwing it like 25% of the time, and he struck out 27.5% of righties. Against lefties, he's only struck out about 20%. Expected ISO to righties is 177. The lefties is 152. So, I think that ideally you get a left-handed power bat, but right-handers, have had some success in the power department as well. It seems more like a spot where I'm just targeting like one-offs or mini stacks, though. I like Carlson. I like the salary on O'Neill.
Yeah, and Arenado got a day off yesterday, I guess was the thing with Carpenter. Just giving him some chill time after the All-Star game, being back in Colorado, I suppose. Maybe I don't really know how to assess that. We're going to move on. Seattle plus 158 at Colorado, 11 total runs here, 11 and a halves that exist. Well, 10 and a halves and 11s around the industry. Head over to Odd Chopper. Take a look at that. That's the best place. That's where I go every single morning to put my lines together to take a look at the day's goodies. Yes, if you were playing the Eric Lindquist drinking game, there is my goodies for the day. It's apparently my buzzword, Adam. That's something that I say a lot. I don't notice that I say it, but I love getting to Colorado bats. I don't think that's going to surprise anybody on the other side, but there is a conversation to be had about the other side of this game. And that is how to treat Herman Marquez, who has been just kind of a little bit revelatory in the last, this entire season. He's been pretty decent, specifically in the last 5. 3 of the 5, he's put up some massive outings in Coors Field. He's somebody who limits hard contact. That's important for pitching in this stadium. Only a 4.1 degree launch angle as well for the season, average launch angle. That's fantastic too. Herman Marquez is somebody that I have quite a bit of interest in, especially if he's going to be underowned like it's showing up over on DK here. 11.7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only 8.5% ownership. I will have a lot more than that. How are you going to treat Herman Marquez?
I'm with you. It's a really, it's never a good feeling to roster a pitcher in Coors, but there's a couple of things that make me think it's not a bad idea here. For one, Seattle does have strikeouts in their lineup. They're not one of the stronger offenses. For two, the pricing on this slate is so weird. Like a lot of the pitchers in this 8 to 9K range are just priced up to a point where you're not going to play them. Marquez, you're getting a little bit of a Coors Field discount at 8,100. So that kind of helps it mitigates the risk to some extent because you're not paying, full freight for Marquez. And then also he's not getting a lot of ownership right now, only projected for about 7 to 8%. So I think, coming in a little bit underowned there, while you also have the Mariners with an ownership share much higher than their top stack percentage. So you're, kind of being overowned. So I think it's risky, but I do think that at 8,100, Marquez looks like one of the higher upside options in that range.
And only a 3.4% barrel percentage he's giving up for the season. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous how efficient he can be for this kind of a ballpark. If we can just kind of have it all match up, 25% K percentage going up against the Seattle team, I think that that's very doable. I think that that's more than enough to set up well. If you get Dylan Moore, Kalenic, I don't know what that lineup's going to look like. They called up so many dudes on the Seattle side. Dylan Thomas, I don't know who that is. But I think Seattle on the one side, are you still going to have some Seattle on the other side? I mean, looking at the top stacks tool, it seems as though they're still going to get some ownership there. They're coming in one of our most negatively leveraged teams, second most negatively leveraged team on this slate. I can't really get to the Seattle side because I think Marquez is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, if the ownership's there, I don't think I'll get to much of it. The one thing I will point out is that they do grade out as a really good value team. Like Jared Kelenic is 2,100, Cal Raleigh is 2K flat, Seager's only 4K in Coors. Haniger's only 40. Like Haniger's the most expensive hitter on the team at 4,400. So it's not. I care a little bit less about the aggregate ownership when when they are really, really good values, because obviously I can get good one-offs elsewhere. I can get good pitching. But I still think that there's enough value elsewhere on this slate that I'll probably end up underweight on Seattle, overweight on Marquez.
Yeah, and I talked about it a little bit earlier. The MLB player props tool, make sure you're using that in your process. It is still free right now. Herman Marquez, second best expected ROI on the board amongst all pitchers in our strikeouts tool for him, over on 5.5. That looks really, really good there. I like getting to that spot. But as for Colorado, we know that Colorado is not a fantastic offense by any means, but I think that is mitigated by this matchup when it is Marco Gonzalez, 43.4% hard hit percentage, a 6.11 expected slugging. What am I even looking at right now?
Yeah, it's bad. I mean, this is a guy that years ago I used to always want to take hitters against him because I didn't believe in him, and he just his command was so good. Changeup was good. He would just get so many infield pop-ups, and it was really, really frustrating. Guys like that typically don't last very long, and that's what you're seeing here, I think. I mean, against righties this year, a 284 expected ISO. Against lefties, it's 351. He's not striking guys out. Now he's pitching in Coors. This offense is terrible, but I still side with the Rockies here. I mean, we have him projected to be a little bit overowned, 10% aggregate ownership, 8.2% chance of being the top stack, but have to really like Trevor Story, have to like CJ Cron. Brendan Rodgers looks fine. Blackman looks fine. McMahon is fine. I still like the Rockies here, even though they're a god-awful offense. I think they're better than Marco Gonzalez.
Yep, they're definitely that. And right now, if the slate were to start this second right now, Colorado's actually only getting the third most ownership on the slate. It's pretty negligible leverage there, negative 0.9. So I do not mind the Colorado side. And as you said, a number of hitters that you can identify that can be pretty good in this spot against he's just a really bad pitcher. All right, we're making fantastic time. 2 games to go, 10 minutes. Let's rock. Pittsburgh plus 101 going into Arizona, 9 total runs here. On the one side, we have Tyler Anderson, 8.5K. Amongst all of these 8K dudes that are overpriced, I mean, Tyler Anderson, put him in the pool, but against Arizona, there's definitely some upside that exists there. Tyler Widener on the other side, 7.9K. How are you handling pitching in this one?
Don't really love the pricing on either guy. Not a spot that I anticipate getting to too much of either. Tyler Anderson coming off of a start where he threw 65 pitches against the Mets. Prior to that, he had thrown 93. Widener, he was over 10K last time he pitched, so nice to see him come down to 7,900, but only threw 63 pitches on the 9th against the Dodgers. So not expecting him to go too deep here. Yeah, I don't know. I think I can just find better pitching options than these two.
Yeah, so Widener for the season, 2.54 ERA, 1.17 WHIP. He only had the one start against the Dodgers. He had been out for a month and a half with a groin injury. And so that was kind of he had a rehab start. Trying to see if he had gone anywhere. Yeah, he hadn't gone above 60 in the rehab start. So 63 pitches, maybe gets to 70 plus against Pittsburgh. If you get 75 pitches, I mean, we've talked about how overpriced some of these guys are in the 8K range. I mean, put Tyler Anderson into that bucket as well. But I mean, is he at least better compared to the other guys in the range if you're going to try to get off of somebody like Skubal, who's getting a ton of ownership? Or is there a case that can be made for him?
I guess, like, he's facing the Pirates and 75 to 80 pitches, like, you can still get there. I'd just be a lot more interested if you were like 7K or something. Like, to me, if I'm getting off of like Tyler Skubal or Tarek Skubal in that price range, like, I'd rather go to a 7% owned Marquez than
No, me too. So I guess I have to ask these questions, Adam. I have to ask these questions.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's close for me. But I just think he's like a little bit too expensive, and I'm a little bit too unsure of how deep he can go into the game.
All right. Love it. Going to Pittsburgh bats, not my favorite thing on the planet to do, but Brian Hayes, Ben Gamel, I mean, at least I don't really want to play Pittsburgh backs either. How about you?
No, I don't. I think Widener's good enough. And more importantly, the Pirates are bad enough. They're projected to be a little bit over-owned here because they do have some really good value bats. I feel like we've said that about like half the teams on this slate. But $3,600 Brian Reynolds is underpriced. 2K Ben Gamel, still probably batting in the middle of the order, is underpriced. You can definitely go to those guys as value, but I don't think you'll be alone. And they're still, I mean, Reynolds is a good hitter, but they're still just not that good. So yeah, it's not a spot that I'm really expecting to get much of.
And on the other side, Cole Calhoun got the whole price bump from 2K to 2.5K. I guess that'll be lefty on lefty. That might be a little bit neutralized. Josh Rojas is 4.7K. What is going on in the world? Eduardo Escobar, 5.7K now. That's a ridiculously pay up to be contrarian bat, but Christian Walker really stands out at 3.3K. Anybody else that you're really going to from this Arizona side?
Yeah, not much, but I was going to say Christian Walker individually at 3,300, I think stands out as a very good price point here. Tyler Anderson for the season, 202 expected ISO to righties. Christian Walker has enough power to do some damage. So, the price on Calhoun is good just based on Calhoun's talent, but lefty isn't the best. Escobar is really expensive. Rojas is really expensive. Walker's kind of like the one guy that stands out to me here.
This whole slate is just insane with some of the pricing.
So it is worth mentioning too, Cole Calhoun, since the start of 2019, 257 plate appearances against left-handed pitching, 226 ISO. The power has still been there. Tyler Anderson's been good against lefties this year in terms of limiting power. But I do think you can still go to a $2,500 Calhoun.
All righty. Yeah, that's a good point to bring up there. Don't mind getting to him. Let's round this thing out. We've got 3.9 implied runs for the Giants. What is it? Plus 130 I'm looking at. Going up against the Dodgers, 4.7 runs here. Do we have a Dodgers starting pitcher?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't have a Dodgers starting pitcher either. So it's kind of strange to have a number that exists out there. Right now, they have Josiah Gray. Is that okay? So then we've got Clevenger, who's going to be the opener. So it'll be a little bit of an opener spot here for San Francisco. But Josiah Gray, he was on the 7-day IL here. What do you know about him? Because he's going to be the guy getting the bulk of the work, it looks like.
According to FanGraphs, he's the number 1 prospect for the Dodgers, number 19 overall. God, this team just has so many good young players.
It's unfair.
At AAA this year, he made 4 appearances, 3 starts, only threw 15 2/3 innings, struck out 38.5% of hitters. My assumption is he's not going very deep into this game, just based on the fact he's thrown 15 innings this season. Pulling up his minor league game logs now, he pitched July 15th. He went 4 2/3, struck out 7, didn't walk any. We got 4 innings on July 10th, 4 2/3 on July 15th. I don't know, maybe he gives you 4 or 5 innings out of the bullpen, which at 4,700 wouldn't be bad. Still probably not something that's necessary on this slate with as much cheap hitting as we have. But Yeah, there's some path to success, I think, at 4,700. But it really comes down to, are they actually going to let him go 4 to 5 innings, or are they going to say, okay, go throw 2 or 3? That's all we need.
In recent years, maybe this is just, being out in LA and watching Dodger games all the time, but it seems like he hasn't had the short leash that he's had in previous years. Maybe it's different being a prospect, being the number one prospect that they have, where he automatically gets yanked here early. But it felt like even with like Dustin May here before he got hurt, guys like that, he's been giving a little bit longer leash to. 4,700, he's a guy to put a sticky note on, because that is a cheap enough price. We don't have a lot of those guys underneath 7K that we're super interested in on the slate. Everybody's kind of priced up in the pitching department. So if we end up finding out that we can get some more work out of him than possible here, make sure you're checking into the deeper dive, the live before lock here crew as well, which I believe I'm on live before lock. And are you on the deeper dive today? Yep. So we'll be able to go back and talk a little bit more in depth. Cause again, the pitching stuff, it doesn't become official until a little bit later. And maybe it's something where he's not even guaranteed to be entering the game. It's just a lot to kind of decipher through coming into the afternoon. So keep him on your radar. That's definitely the right way to do it. But Alex Wood on the other side, 9.9K is a big number to be seeing for Alex Wood, but he's probably worth it. 25.3% K percentage. Maybe that's not elite by any means. You can find some better value for upside a little bit lower, but God, this matchup's just awful. Would you be having some shares of Alex Wood today?
I think a lot depends on the ownership. Right now, we have him projected for less than 1% ownership. If that's the case, I certainly can see getting to some, just because he's a pretty good pitcher. The Dodgers may not have Mookie. He was in the lineup yesterday and then he scratched, so don't know if he'll be in there today. But I mean, it's still a dangerous spot. You're paying a lot for Alex Wood. Like, he's more expensive than Yu Darvish. He's more expensive than Aaron Nola. He's just expensive in general. Like, he's $100 less than Trevor Rogers. So I'm not excited about getting there, but at 1% owned, I certainly can see getting more than that.
And the Dodgers, if it ends up being kind of a bullpen situation, this is not the bullpen that you want to be targeting here with the San Francisco Giants, correct?
Yeah, especially because, I mean, the pitcher that they're using as their bulk guy is good, or at least supposed to be good. So, I don't really see getting to the Giants here. I don't really see getting to the Dodgers either, because I think Wood is a good pitcher and he's not getting any ownership. So you're not getting like leverage in that regard. But I would, like, if I have to choose between these two teams, I'd be more likely to go to the Dodgers, just because they are a high upside offense. But, again, potentially missing Mookie. We know they're missing Gavin Lux. Not quite as deep an offense as it normally is, but still a good one.
Yeah, Mookie Betts is starting to come alive a little bit. Mookie Betts did have a pinch hit at bat, though, yesterday. Okay. So that was something that was good. So he got scratched. I saw that he got pulled out of that one, but he had a pinch hit attempt in the game. I think that bodes well for his status for today, I would guess. I think that would probably make him my favorite Dodger bat, probably alongside Max Muncy, even left on left. But how about you?
Sorry, I didn't catch the beginning of that.
Oh, just the beginning, just being Mookie Betts' favorite bat in the entire game if he's in the lineup.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, agreed.
Okay. That was just kind of the overall question, but that does it. I mean, we just hammered out 13 games here. We've got a huge main slate. But Adam, any final words for the people here as we close out?
No, I think that's it. I'll be back at 4:45 with somebody.
I will tell you you're in 4 seconds. So Greg, we've got you've got Greg. Yeah, so Greg will be leading the show next time around here for the deeper dive. I'm going to be leading the show with Terry. He will be your analyst for the MLB Live Before Lock. But don't forget, NBA Live Before Lock as well tonight. Lofty and Josh, and then the NBA Live After Lock, which you're not going to want to miss. If you've tuned into the last couple, there's been some true degenerate activity. It's been fantastic. So you need to be checking that out. It's as good as it gets. But he's Adam Scherer. I'm Eric Lindquist. This is the MLB Strategy Show. Best of luck tonight.